Out of all the big, strong engines of Sodor, Diesel 10 remains by far the biggest and strongest engine of Sodor. His huge hydraulic metal crushing claw is capable of lifting heavy pieces of scrap, crushing them into tiny pieces, and lifting them into heavy freight cars. Because he is called Diesel 10 for having devious deeds and brutal strength, none of the other engines like to go near him, especially Ari, Bert, and Diesel. One afternoon, Diesel 10 was resting near the scrapyards. The workmen were taking their coffee break and didn't pay attention to him, but he didn't mind. He liked being alone. Just then, Donald and Douglas arrived. Diesel 10 snarled. He dreaded seeing the twins at the scrapyards. Donald and Douglas scoffed. They had seen many Diesels before, but none were as scary as Diesel 10. But that didn't stop them from being unafraid of him. "Looky here, Donny," exclaimed Douglas. "An engine who can't seem to keep his claw trapped." "Aye, you're right there," agreed Donald. "He's such a big brute. Why on earth does Sir Topham Hatt keep him on our railway?" Diesel 10 grunted. "I'll have you know that with Pinchy by my side, we can handle twice the amount of work that you relics can't. Right, Pinchy?" And he raised his claw up. Donald and Douglas didn't flinch. "Man, that claw above you makes you look ridiculous," laughed Donald. "You do nothing but pick up scrap and send them into trucks." "Aye," agreed Donald. "We're out about on the main line, hauling heavy loads and doing real work. Something you could never understand." Diesel 10 became red in the face. "For your information, we Diesels were built specifically to replace you puffballs and take heavy loads and carry passengers to and from stations above. And so there." Donald and Douglas laughed. "We don't see you doing that often. You've got nothing to prove it." And they puffed away laughing. "Maybe you're not so strong after all." Diesel 10 raised his claw at them. "Oh, those filthy black puffballs," he grunted. "What do they know? I'll show them that we Diesels can be more than what they know of us." The next morning, Ari and Bert arrived with empty freight cars. They were very afraid of Diesel 10. "All right, Barry," snapped Diesel 10. "Move the trucks a little closer to me. That way we won't have any trouble." Actually, it's Ari." "Yeah, and, Bert." "Well, I don't have time to say both names, so do as I tell you, or Pinchy will have a midnight snack." Ari and Bert were shaken. The hours went by. Diesel 10 and his claw were working very hard. His claw became stuffed with scrap, and the workmen were very impressed. At last, the train was full, and Ari and Bert took them to be melted down. "Whew," sighed Diesel 10. "Could be any better than this." Suddenly, he looked over. A huge piece of twisted scrap was laying next to him. Diesel 10 sighed, but just before his claw began to lift it up, he suddenly heard a whistle. It was Murdoch, and he was steaming with a heavy goods train. Startled by the noise, Diesel 10 dropped the scrap onto Murdoch's line. He raised his claw to grab it, but then suddenly stopped. Oh no can do. Ain't no way I'm helping a stinky steamer. Murdoch came from round the curve and suddenly saw the scrap on his line. The men waved him down. He applied his brakes, but it was too late. As the dust cleared, there, laying uncomfortably by the rails, was Murdoch. He was badly damaged and dented, and he was covered in scrap metal. Oh my, he coughed dreadfully. Whatever on earth happened? Diesel 10 looked away in shame. But there was no time to explain. By golly, cried the driver. The train's still on the line. But whatever shall we do? It's going to be late for the mainland. Just then, Diesel 10 had an idea. Allow me to offer my services. I can take it there in a jiffy. I am the strongest after all. Murdoch was shocked, but there was nothing he could do. Diesel 10 had made up his mind. In truth, Diesel 10 wanted to show off his strength to Donald and Douglas and prove he was capable of pulling heavy trains. Leave this lot to me, he shouted to Murdoch. These trucks are in good hands with me. And before you go over the hill, it's no trouble at all. I'm 10 out of 10 for devious deeds and brutal strength. And with the heavy growl of his engine, Diesel 10 struggled to pull the trucks. It was hard work, but at last, Diesel 10 was moving. The trucks grumbled behind him. Diesel 10 became very vain. What did I tell you? He said to no one in particular. This is a piece of cake. There ain't no train too heavy for me. The trucks grumbled. They were beginning to grow tired of Diesel 10's boasting. People waved and shouted to him, and Diesel 10 became flabbergasted. No one's ever waved to me before. I really am the strongest after all. But when they reached the top of Gordon's Hill, Diesel 10 began to regret his boasting. He struggled to haul the heavy train upward. Come on, he hissed. Nothing to it. Nothing will slow me down. His claw creaked and groaned, feeling the weight. Soon Diesel 10 began to slow down. No, this can't happen to me. I mustn't stop. At last, he found himself reaching the top. Ha! What did I tell you, Pinchy? This is a piece of cake. I'm 10 out of 10 for devious deeds and brutal. Now! And the trucks pushed him down the hill. Faster, faster! The whole train flew down the hill. Hey, slow down, you wretched lot! His claw raised in front of him, but they laughed even more. Scary Claw can hurt us! Scary Claw can hurt us! At the Sodor airport, Gordon was collecting some vacationers when he saw Diesel 10 headed straight towards him. Clear the tracks! He bellowed. Out of my way, Bluey! The signalman saw this and changed the points just in time. Yow! Diesel 10 tried to apply his brakes, but they had no effect on the trucks. And it was all too late. Gordon looked on in shock. The signalman had sent Diesel 10 onto a siding, and it crashed through the buffers straight near the runway where George was repairing it. George grumbled dreadfully. This just isn't my day, he scowled. The runway gets damaged, and now engines are playing tomfoolery around these roads. I'll show you tomfoolery. And Diesel 10 raised his claw, but it didn't reach George. Soon, Thomas and Percy came to collect the train, while Donald and Douglas came to the rescue. Diesel 10 was very embarrassed. Not only are you 10 out of 10 for brute strength, laughed Thomas, but you're 10 out of 10 for being very silly. As the two engines set off for the mainland, Diesel 10 could only growl even louder. Soon, Donald and Douglas took Diesel 10 to the works. All was silent until Diesel 10 spoke up. Well, he growled, aren't you going to say something? Why would we? Asked Donald. This is an emergency. Aye, agreed Douglas. You come off the tracks. It's very urgent. Diesel 10 was very confused. What are you relics going on about? I was trying to prove how really strong I am. Aye, Douglas interrupted. And you've also shown how reckless you were. Hey, not to worry though, said Donald. We'll get you there and we'll have you repaired in no time. Then you can be a really useful engine again. Although we prefer if you stick to your scrap duties. That would be really useful. Diesel 10 was speechless. No one had ever called him really useful before. Who needs heavy goods trains? I'm perfect with lifting scrap whenever I can. I like that better. But he said it to himself.